Good morning. This video is on the persuasive speech and the speaking notes that go along with it. As a quick reminder, think back to our discussions of what the speech is or should be. Now, we didn't touch upon this very much as this is the first completely new assignment we're talking about. That is something that we didn't start together before the transition happened, but it did get mentioned. So, Number one, remember that this should be on the same topic as the editorial, and this is done so that you can use some of the work you've already accomplished, such as the writing, drafting, or research from the editorial in this speech, although you will need to go beyond it. The persuasive speech addresses your classmates as your audience. It discusses the effects of the issue, and from now on I'll refer to the issue as a problem just to make things easier. And it does so on 3 different cultural groups in the local area. Finally, the speech should advocate for a solution more extensively than the editorial ever did. Now, looking at those points in more depth shows us more of what we'll need to do that is somewhat like the editorial, but still sets the persuasive speech as being apart from it. First and foremost, the problem must be discussed in terms that your classmates would understand. Just the same as we were using audience awareness of a general Western New York audience for the editorial, here our audience awareness is instead of all of our classmates from our class who could and will probably be looking at our speech after we post it. The speech should use research to establish credibility in showing how 3 different cultural groups in the area are affected by the problem. This is not something that we want to speculate about. We can't afford to hide behind plausibility. We need to have actual fact here, and we need to make sure that our viewer or listener knows that. The speech uses research to show how other similar areas have dealt with this sort of problem that you're dealing with, and this should be done as a way of discussing, recommending, and otherwise developing the solution that you have chosen. Your speech should discuss how an empowered person should enact the solution. In other words, you want to start thinking about the sort of person who really could either solve the problem themselves or go a long way towards solving the problem. Lastly, your speech should also discuss how the listener can start enacting the solution somehow, even if only by little things they do. On handling the research, Number one, remember that it has to be clear that we've done the research. Research should be evident in speaking notes as in-text and end citations. Research should be evident in the speech as reference to sources that include enough information to actually get your listener back to the source if that listener wanted to check on the information that you're drawing from. Now, a citation example takes the hypothetical subject of what happens to post-industrial cities such as Buffalo, specifically having to do with economic renewal. So, in the speaking notes, the citation would look something like this. Relying upon research to show how other similar areas have dealt with this problem, we're discussing and recommending a solution by stating that other former Rust Belt post-industrial cities have required more than just public and private partnerships. These have required third sector organizations. After that, I have included the names of the authors that I'm drawing this information from in a parenthetical citation, as you can see. Now, the end citations will look just like other ones that you should have already practiced for the course. Again, let me remind you that this is a fantastic reason to use the library databases, as they provide good citations for you having to do with exactly when you accessed the information. And just to repeat, that date of access does indeed need to be a part of the citation that you write. In the speech itself, a verbal citation of that source would sound something like this. James Wallace and Nellarine Cornelius write in their article, Community Development and Social Regeneration, about third sector groups. That is, groups that are neither only public nor only private, but instead could be volunteer groups or could be the result of public-private partnerships. Looking for a moment at exactly how we'll submit the work, first, the speaking notes should be submitted to the Blackboard Dropbox that's been set up for those. Check out the assignment guidelines as well as the list of revised due dates and readings for exactly what that Blackboard Dropbox is. Otherwise, by now you should be used enough to the organization of Blackboard that you can figure out where that is for yourself. But again, that information is also elsewhere, including in the assignment guidelines. Your speech should be recorded with a phone or webcam and submitted to Microsoft Stream, and you have access to this through SUNY Erie. I have included the URL of that website below, and I'll also make sure to include it in your assignment guidelines. Some speaking and recording tips include, first, practicing the speech before you give it. You might think that it would be easier sitting in front of a phone or a computer to give a speech instead of to people, but actually you'd be wrong. It's just about as difficult, but for other reasons, including the fact that one lacks human input on the way that they're speaking and if anything needs to change. It's still a difficult process, so make sure to practice the speech. Either write out the full speech or at least make sure you can refer to your speaking notes as you record your speech. Imagine yourself speaking to one person you know well as you record, rather than thinking about some larger group of people just behind the screen. Remember, errors are okay. Take a second, clear your throat, and go on. There's no need to do this over and over again pursuing perfection. Lastly, plan not only for what your audience will hear, that is the speech, but also what they will see. This means, of course, that you'll need to somewhat control what your audience will see. So, first, dress professionally from the waist up. Generally speaking, recordings by phones and webcams aren't showing anything from the waist below, but you want to make sure that you've got a decent shirt on, guys preferably something collared. Style your hair, just make sure that it looks neat enough that it's not distracting. Record your speech in a neutral environment. Again, this is making sure that there isn't anything in the background that your listener or viewer will be so preoccupied by that they're not really paying attention to you. Avoid interruptions. Put yourself in a place where you can focus fully on the speech and where nothing unexpected is likely to happen. Make sure that everyone around you knows that you need privacy. This will help to head off problems such as people coming in demanding help, answers to questions, or other things that are only going to distract you. Finally, avoid surroundings that are definitely informal. That is, avoid things like bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. This concludes this discussion of the persuasive speech. I'll be available for limited hours this week and then back to full office hours and email next week. Thank you very much.